are so delighted to have Father Peter John Cameron, OP, with us today. And Father, you have so many accomplishments. And I looked at him and I thought, oh my goodness, I could say a lot of things about what you do, but it dawns on me, who are you? I mean,
I have no idea. Still trying to figure that out.
How did you, I don't even know how you entered the Dominicans or your family or anything. Are you a Southerner or Northerner or what? But tell us a little bit about yourself.
It's a great joy to be with you, Mother. I want to say that first of all. Thank you so much for inviting me here and to be with this podcast with you today. I grew up I was born in Rhode Island.
Oh.
Well, you have to say Rhode Island. That's what you say for Rhode Island. And I grew up outside of Hartford, Connecticut. But my parents were both from Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Oh.
And when they were growing up, there were 3 Dominican foundations in Providence, 2 parishes, and of course Providence College. Okay. So when I've wanted to be a priest since I was a little boy, and the desire never really went away. But then in high school, I discovered there was a seminary high school not far from where I lived in Bloomfield, Connecticut, called St. Thomas Seminary for St. Thomas Aquinas. Oh. And so I switched to that school to start pursuing a priesthood vocation with a little bit more intentionality. And I always had the inkling that I wanted to belong to a religious community. And so when I discussed this with my parents, because they grew up in Rhode Island, the community they knew better than any other were the Dominicans. And so they suggested it to me. So I actually read a novel by Louis de Wohl called The Quiet Light. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so, very much so. Yeah.
And that book really affected me.
Good.
And I was impressed because St. Thomas, as you remember the story, his parents were not really in favor of his joining the Dominican order, which was new and not too prestigious. They really wanted him to be a Benedictine, and they had hopes he would be an abbot. But his reasons for wanting to be a Dominican, as the book discusses, he wanted to preach, he loved the Eucharist, and he wanted to be a good confessor. I thought, those are all the things that I want too.
Beautiful.
So with that, after I finished high school, I went to Providence College with the intention of really making a more serious investigation, if you will, of the Order of Preachers. And I met Father Romanus Cesario while he was finishing his PhD studies. I was doing a junior year abroad program in Freiburg, Switzerland, and he brought me into the order.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that we were alumni of the same. I went to PC also.
I didn't see you.
Yeah, well, I was a little bit before your time. So anyway, well, Father, I looked at all of the things. The Dominican must have seen your talents because you have done so many things in the Dominican order. So let's just look at some of them. Let's look at what fascinates me is the theater. Now, how on earth did you get involved in theatrical accomplishments?
Well, it's strange because I've always been interested in the theater. In fact, when I went to Providence College, thinking about being a Dominican, I thought, all right, well, I'll have to study theology. So, I think I signed up to be a theology major. And I remember I was outside the chaplain's office, and it was Father Terry Keegan, who was a great priest, big help to me. And so I told him about my aspirations to become a Dominican. And he said, what are you studying? I said, theology. He said, well, don't do that, because you're going to have to study again. I said, so what should I should study philosophy then? He said, no, study something that you really like. I said, well, something I really like, in which I did in high school, was theater. And he said, well, we have a very little program here, but if that's where your heart is, then do that. So I actually was a theater major at Providence College and loved it. It was a fledgling program, but it was great because it was so small. You had to do a little bit of everything, backstage and acting. I learned so much, and they were wonderful people. So when I decided to become a Dominican, in the process of going through these interviews, I learned that the Dominican province of St. Joseph, my Dominican province, for 32 years operated an off-Broadway theater company called Blackfriars Theater. In fact, I think it still has the distinction of being the longest continuously operated off-Broadway theater in American stage history. And a number of great theater artists got their start there. Geraldine Page and Eileen Heckert and Darren McGavin and some playwrights and some producers. So when I was going through the interviews to enter the order, a number of people said to me, well, would you ever consider reviving Blackfriars Theater? I said, well, I would love to do that, but I didn't even know about it. I didn't know that was a possibility as a Dominican.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
So sure enough, I went through my philosophical and theological studies, and I was encouraged to go across the street from the Dominican House of Studies in Washington, D.C., where we do our theology studies, to the Catholic University of America and do a graduate degree, which I did in playwriting. So I have a Master of Fine Arts in playwriting, and my mentor was the famous Father Gilbert Harkey.
Harkey, the bill, yeah.
Yeah, and the theater is named after him. So when I finished that degree and also my license in sacred theology, I was actually sent to Providence College as my first priestly assignment to teach in the theater department and to manage the theater there. Yeah.
That is great.
So I never really gave it up, and I worked for a couple of years for a Catholic film company. But then in 1998, I had a play that I wanted to produce in honor of the centenary of the death or the birth of St. Therese? I can't remember. Should know. And to produce it, I thought it'd be good if we could do it under the auspices of an actual theater. So my provincial gave me permission to found Blackfriars Repertory Theater.
That is wonderful. I was fascinated in seeing that. Well, you know, it kind of goes into another thing that you've been involved in. It's homiletics, because I think the theater and, you know, but I was so impressed when I saw you taught homiletics in 4 different seminaries.
Not all at the same time, but
I would
a little bit here and a little bit
but
there.
But that's amazing.
Well,
how important it is for the young priest.
It is. Preaching is important. It's just there aren't a whole lot of homiletics professors out there. I mean, it sounds like a disease being a homiletics professor, but
it sounds wonderful to me, you know.
And it's something I was always sort of interested in. And the way it began was I was a campus minister at New York University in Greenwich Village, and Cardinal John O'Connor, God be good to him, the former Cardinal Archbishop of the Archdiocese of New York, was making some changes to his major seminary, St. Joseph's Seminary, Dunwoody, and he wanted a Dominican to be teaching homiletics there. So he asked Father Gabriel O'Donnell, who had been teaching homiletics at the seminary in Philadelphia, but he was already engaged. So Father O'Donnell recommended me to do it. And so I was just a priest maybe 7 years or so when that started. So I kind of had to teach myself some of the principles for teaching, for instructing others in homiletics. But my background in the theater helped a lot.
I was going to say, it sounds like it would.
It really did, especially in terms of how to structure a homily and, of course, how to deliver a homily. So I began there in 1994 and actually lived there until 2003. And then my provincial assigned me elsewhere. But then in 2010, I was asked to go to the seminary on Long Island that serves the dioceses of Brooklyn and Rockville Center. And that seminary at Immaculate Conception in Huntington, New York, merged with St. Joseph's Seminary, Dunwoody. And that's how I ended up back there again for another stint of 6 years.
My goodness.
But I love doing it. I love teaching homiletics.
Oh, that is wonderful. Yeah, I think the order was blessed to have you to do this. I mean, I think. Another thing, probably, maybe, I have no idea, but maybe it could be what's made you most well known is the Magnificat. I mean, it's universal, probably, you know. How did that happen? I mean, how did you, it was, I think it's providential. It has meant so much to so many people. But tell us the beginning. I mean, how did you get involved in that? Or why did it even begin in the United States?
It really is providential, Mother.
Yeah,
I was on a trip with Father Cesario a pilgrimage in France. And at the end of it, we visited the Dominican Priory in Fribourg, Switzerland, where we had originally met in 1998. No, 1978. What am I talking about? 1978. And while I was there, he handed me this beautiful little prayer journal, prayer aid, and called Magnificat in French. And so this was around 1993 or so. And when I saw it, I immediately said, this needs to be in English. So fast forward to 1998, I had been working freelance for a Catholic newspaper called the National Catholic Register. I was actually a contributing editor to that newspaper, and I had a column on the Sunday scriptures, and I did a number of series for them. So the publisher of Magnificat was looking to assemble a team of journalists and writers from the United States to launch Magnificat in English for America. And he was close friends with the editor of the National Catholic Register. His name is Job Koopman. So Job actually recommended me to help out in some way. So I met the publisher, whose name is Pierre-Marie Dumont. And I remember we met for lunch, and it was going pretty well. So he wanted to take it to the next step. So he took Magnificat out, and he showed it to me, and he began to explain Magnificat and the contents. So I stopped him, and I said, no, you don't have to explain it to me. I can explain it to you, and I'll tell you why I love it. And with that, he offered me the position. So
wonderful.
That's how it began.
You know, there are so many things about the Magnificat that I think is so appealing. One is the artwork. You know, beauty is so magnanimous. You know, I mean, you know, you're just drawn to beauty.
Yep.
But there's just a lot of things about it. But could I ask you, who writes the meditations for the Magnificat?
The meditations, you mean the meditations of the day, Mother?
Of the day.
So, well, they're drawn from many, many different sources, and most of them are more classic works.
Sure.
So we try to use a good smattering of ancient sources, what we call the fathers of the church, but then also some contemporary sources, some precisely or deliberately English writings that have been written in English, so not everything is a translation.
Sure.
There are different sort of criteria that we use for choosing the different meditations of the day.
What about the saints? Some of the most unique saints are in there.
Yes.
So who does that?
So at the moment, those are being done by one lay woman, a mother of 8 children. Her name is Lisa Lacona, who also holds a licentiate in sacred theology. And it was something that just was an interest to her as a devout Catholic woman.
That is amazing.
So with the internet and the resources that are available digitally, she was able to discover all of these biographies of saints, hagiography that you'd otherwise have to be in libraries and flipping through dusty volumes in order to dig up these gems.
That's amazing.
But she's a real scholar, and she's excellent at research, and she has a great gift for writing, and she loves it. It's a passion for her.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. So we're so lucky to have her. Yeah.
Well, Father, I always appreciated your letter in the front. I always liked that. It was so personal, and you just felt connected with you. And now Father Sebastian's doing a great job doing it. So
he's a great editor.
I am, thank God, that went to another Dominican. And,
and a young Dominican. I think it was time for a young Dominican.
How many work on the Magnificat? And,
Believe it or not, the staff for the editorial part of it is not very large. So Father Sebastian has a managing editor who's full-time. And then there's a part-time secretary who actually does all of the hard labor in terms of scanning the meditations and formatting them and getting them ready to put into what we call the master document. And then there's a proofreader who also helps out doing some of the other editorial tasks for us. So basically, that's the whole editorial team.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, as I told you, I said, I go around a lot, and it's just common to see people
That's
with the
good to hear,
Magnificat.
yeah.
You know, I love to see it. That even connects you also.
Sure it does.
Now,
yeah.
Father, one of the most exciting things now to me, because I know nothing about it, but is your new ministry. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had a lifetime for 10 people. But anyway, tell us about this new ministry that you're going into. That is unique and refreshing and so exciting. So
Thank
just
you
tell
for
us about
asking
it.
me, Mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work now full-time with an apostolate called Hard as Nails Ministries. So it was founded by a beautiful, charismatic young layman. His name is Justin Fatika. So he is the father of 5 children. And the story basically is that when he was a young man, he was a bit of a rebel. But at age 17, a priest who was his mentor in the Catholic school that he went to made a profound impression on him by inviting him, despite all of his misbehavior, to go on a retreat. And at that retreat, he had an encounter with Jesus Christ that changed him permanently. And from that moment, he began to draw other people into the same encounter with Christ. And he has a true gift. He's really anointed in his ability to get people excited for Jesus and to start living for him. So he finished his high school and his college. He became a youth minister. He then went on to be a religion teacher. And people began to ask him to direct confirmation retreats and things like that. And he discovered that he was a bit in demand and that probably he could make his living doing this instead of teaching religion. And he really felt that his gifts were more in that area in any event. So in 2002, he began to preach around the country on his own with great success, so much so that HBO learned about him and made a documentary film about Justin's life. And it was released in 2008. It was shown at the Tribeca Film Festival. And with that, the ministry really kind of almost exploded because there were so many requests coming in. So then in 2010, Justin realized that the ministry would really be benefited by having others join him as evangelizers on the road. So he invited young lay missionaries, so 18 to 25 years old, to join him in preaching to the young people that are really the focus of Hard as Nails ministry. So Hard as Nails, it's a funny name, I know.
Yeah.
But the name really refers to the fact that the ministry exists to go out to the hardest of hearts, where we will try to bring Jesus to those who are most resistant to the gospel. And we do it united with the mystery of Christ in his passion, especially at the moment of our Lord's being nailed to the cross, because it was literally an excruciating moment for him. But it was the moment that released into the world the greatest force of love that the planet has never ever known, because it was then that Jesus declared, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." So Hard as Nails lives from the conviction that every moment of suffering contains the same promise and possibility, but sometimes you just need somebody to help you see just how powerful and valuable and productive or fruitful an experience of suffering can be. So that's what the Hard as Nails missionaries do. They travel around the country on a bus that a wonderful benefactor provided for us, offering 16 different kinds of events, from confirmation retreats to campus events to parish missions, but especially reaching out to young people, especially young people in their suffering, whether it's from depression or anxiety or a broken family or addictions or self-harming behavior, whatever it might be, drawing them to the cross so that the power that's unleashed at that cross can really take hold of their suffering, so that young people especially can see the value of their suffering, see the meaning in it, and to help them to suffer well, even to the point of drawing them to be grateful for their suffering.
That is wonderful. Father, when you go into an area, I'm just trying to get my arms around it. When you go into an area, what do you do to draw these young people to a gathering or whatever you call? I mean, how does it work? Like, okay, you take the bus into an area.
Yes.
So how does it?
So for the most part, the events that we would offer would be prearranged through our booking manager.
Okay.
So for example, we would take the bus, say, to the Midwest. So we're going to be doing a number of events in the Fargo area.
Okay.
And so once we know we're going to be there, if there are different requests, say to speak in a school, whether it's a Catholic school or a public school, we have programs designed for both of those, or in a parish. We try to book as many events in the locale for the duration of our stay in that particular area. So, and we typically be in an area for 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
So sometimes the booking manager might have to actually call certain places to say, we're coming, would you be interested in having us?
I see. Now, is this also a ministry to older people?
It is, but I would say more indirectly, because our charism is to evangelize. It is with a special focus for young people,
Good.
with a particular attention to being sensitive to suffering, all of this with the goal of creating community. And we do that by evangelizing through the community of Hard as Nails. So we model for others the way that living the gospel in the church is really most ideal, which is in the communion of the faith. So we try to lead people back to their parishes. We try to strengthen them in their family ties. We try to draw out those who are most marginalized, and we want to try to also raise up leaders in the Catholic Church through the experience of Hard as Nails, because very often what moves people when they're at a Hard as Nails event, as was the case in our Lord sending out the disciples 2 by 2, is the unity between the missionaries, which is something which is just distinguishes the Roman Catholic Church more than anything. But just how Christ makes himself present. You can recognize Christ through the companionship that we share with each other. And it's a unity that can't be faked and that only the grace of Jesus makes possible. So we will evangelize to older people. For example, at parish missions, that's for all age groups. And if we'll do evangelization trainings. For example, for many years, Hard as Nails has helped out the Apostolate for Family Consecration, which every year sponsors Catholic Family Land.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've ever attended that.
Yes.
So for more than 15 years, Justin with the missionaries, have been going to Catholic Family Land on certain summers to offer different programs.
Good. Father, this is so exciting, I think, because, our sisters work a lot with youth, and we've got to get to the youth.
Yes.
And there is so much suffering, and they don't even know sometimes what is going on in their life, because they're so bombarded with distractions and everything is taking them away from God and away from the church.
Yes.
So thank you for this ministry. I'm really excited. I want to hear about it. Let me keep us in touch.
I certainly will, Mother.
Is there? I don't know that much about it. Is there some way we could kind of keep up with it to see what's going on? Or
certainly, yes. So the website is easy to remember. RememberYourAmazing.com.
Amazing. Oh, that's
RememberYourAmazing.com, and we are going to be producing our own podcast pretty soon.
Oh, good.
Because one of the great strengths of Hard as Nails is the follow-up program that we provide.
Yeah.
So we go into these different places. We offer an event, but we want to make sure that people are continuing to grow in holiness and that they're staying close to the people that have helped them grow close to Jesus Christ. So there are many different programs that are offered, especially through the website, to keep people on the path, young people on the path. And we want to catechize the young people, because I think that's one of the sufferings that they experience, is that the reason they haven't been living their faith or living it as the priority of their life is because they haven't learned enough to be able to do it.
That's right.
So we're gonna do a program to help systematically lead young people to a greater understanding and appreciation of the Catholic faith.
Well, Father, I am so glad they got you involved in this.
Oh, I'm honored to be there.
And also, I think the Dominican, to see that this would be a wonderful apostolate. It's great. It's so Dominican, and
It is very Dominican.
and it is. So thank you, and thank you for coming to us. I mean, we feel so honored because you really are so busy, and we're privileged to have you with us. And God bless you, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Mother. It's been a joy to be with you. Thank you.